Club benchmarking, as hopefully you all know, his mission is to foster healthier clubs, more empowered managers, and more strategic boards by elevating fact over opinion. And we're delighted that Ken was able to participate this morning. Many of you know Ken, but he's a recognized leader in the hospitality and private club industry. He's certified by the Club Management Association of America and a member of the association's prestigious Honor Society. So I'd like to welcome up Ken Butler for his presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's good to see everybody, so many familiar faces. I've been here numerous times. So this is kind of a two-part, as you can see by the agenda. So what I'm going to spend some time on here in the first one is just looking at some trends. Basically looking at through the lens of our strategic monthly dashboard, which numerous clubs in the MGA participated in, and we're very happy about that. The strategic monthly dashboard is available to all of our subscribers, but it's also available to non-subscribers. It's a free service that we do for the industry, so to provide month by month insight on what's going on at a high level with dues, non-dues, initiation fees, and so on and so forth, and many other metrics. You all know who we are. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but we have a team of 62 people now. A good number of them are not former general managers like myself, but they're research scientists and data scientists that study the financial results of well over 1,200 clubs a year, and even more than that now. We have people that are studying economic impact, as Rob was talking about before, and discovered a number of things there in our partnership with NCA and with CNAA on that. And so a lot of the data that we're going to share today is from, like I said, the strategic monthly dashboard. We're going to look at specifically MGA results on a couple of different trends. We're going to expand that out to the Mid-Atlantic region, which you're part of, as well as national, especially when we're talking about trends in non-dues revenues. So if you've seen us before, you've seen a chart that looks a lot like this one. I think last year it probably had 3 buckets, and now it has 4. We've actually seen some movement in the industry from a perspective of financial health. And yet, our industry still separates itself out in 25% groupings, if you will, that you have from clubs that are shrinking rapidly to clubs that are shrinking at the rate of inflation to clubs that are having a moderate growth now, and then clubs that are in the upper quartile that are growing with purpose. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We'll spend a little bit more time on what's going on this chart when we get into session number 2, which will expand a little bit on this with maybe less data, but more of a narrative, looking at the key takeaways that we've seen in recent years and over the years. But the rest of this presentation is going to be based on just trends in dues, non-dues primarily, some initiation fee information, and things of that nature. And then at the end, I'm going to just brief you on a case study that we've worked with numerous clubs on, but I'm going to give you some specific examples of a club that we're currently working on developing and growing capital generation at a club that actually is in that red bucket category that you see there, and the things that they're doing and being able to help them with. So hopefully that'll be interesting for you. But let's take a look back over the last couple of years at dues increases. Just going back to the COVID years there, you can see what I'm showing here is the median dues increase since 2020, 2021, and what have you. So you see that median dues increase that will average from 2016 to 2020 was right about 4%. Yeah, Carl?
Are these regional or national?
This particular look is a national look at it. Okay, I'm going to show you some regional information here in a second, but this is a look back at what we've seen in all clubs with golf. Going back at that first line, 2016 to 2020. And then 21, 22, the year where we really started to see big inflation, and you see that 7% increase at the median. And then again, a little bit more, 22 to 23, where the median increase was 9%. And I believe the 75th percentile was 15. And then the 23 to 24 timeframe, back to 7%. And we just did a survey of clubs looking at the forward to 2026. And we got a read on what clubs are doing, whether they've already budgeted or what they're planning to budget. And it looks like the median this year is 5%. With the 75th percent is going to be in the 7 to 8% range and higher. And then the 25th percentile is 4%. So we're seeing a pretty consistent number between that 5 and 6% based on where you are and based on your own footprints and what your member expectations are requiring. CPI hasn't been a very good measurement. I think in many clubs, private club inflation is cruising at a little bit of a higher rate. Don't really have a real number for you on that, but if you know the direction of golf course equipment replacements, it's much, much higher than what CPI would say, right? And same thing on payroll, which is another driver, right? And so the pressure on payroll and equipment purchasing is really driving that, as well as utilities and other things. And of course, member expectations is a big part of that as well. So here's a look at operating dues increases, where, like I said, already set versus an estimated increases, clubs that haven't done. You see the number of responses there on the right, and then the all responses. So the 25th at 4%, like I said, the median at 5%, the 75th at 7%. Okay, then you see the club types there. You see country clubs and golf clubs are still in that 4, 5, and 7 respectively. And also are the most responses that we got off this survey. Some of you probably participated in that survey, and you would have probably received this information already. Those clubs that haven't participated in the survey can get this information. All we ask is you show us and give us your response to that survey, and we're happy to send you a link to that. And so that you can get that report if you're still in budgeting mode. Okay, so then looking at the dues revenues month by month, and this is looking at a Metropolitan Golf subset in the strategic monthly dashboard. This is month by month going back to 2021. And you see, if you just read this chart by looking at what's the kind of the average, right? Because it jumps all over the place because months. Clubs are billing dues at different times and what have you. And so you see for the last 12 months that month by month is an average of about 6 to 7% over the previous year. So that matches what we know about dues increases during that period of time. And that's been pretty consistent. The next slide is a two-part slide here. So we're looking at membership and attrition. And this is looking at it just through the lens of Metropolitan Golf subset here. So if you look at total member counts, this is the chart on the left here. Total membership count. And Metropolitan Golf is the far left, and you have the Mid-Atlantic region in the middle, and then you have all clubs on the right. So it's pretty consistent across the board, where you have total member count versus full member equivalent counts. And then the chart on the right, I'm going pretty quickly through this because I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to see this or have it as a takeaway. You see the net change in members year over year. And so in the Metropolitan Golf Association, it's reported as 4 members at the median of that. And then you see in the Mid-Atlantic, it's 7 pickups net. And then across all clubs, it's 1. So this has been flattening out a little bit since the big growth rates in 20, 21, 22 has been calming down, but it hasn't gone negative, which is good. There's a couple of things that we'll point out that are pretty interesting to keep an eye on, and that will be coming in the non-dues areas, because that's going to be the leading indicator of any problems down the road, most likely. But we're still seeing positive results on member fill rate and lower attrition primarily than what we've seen in maybe before the pandemic. But the median attrition is still about 5%. But many clubs that have a wait list, that's been less than 5%. It's like 2.5 or 3% in the last few years. And it will probably, in the next couple of years, go back into the 5% range. So we look at the total cost of belonging. This is mandatory costs. So this takes into account dues, capital dues, assessments, any minimum charges or other mandatory charges like locker room fees if they're mandatory, bag room fees if they're mandatory. You can see the upper right there is the net golf. That says Westchester Fairfield, but it is the whole MGA footprint there, so at 24,000. Quite a bit higher than the regional and the national look, but then again, we know that. It's the one area of fees and dues where the New York metropolitan grouping of clubs tends to be higher than the rest of the world. And so that this is just talks about that and confirms that a little bit. So gives you an idea of where you stand. These numbers go back to August, so we keep an eye on this on a monthly basis. Then you look at percentage of clubs with a wait list. This is kind of interesting because we know that before the pandemic, this was a 25% number across the board. 25% of clubs with golf had a wait list. Now it's interesting, you see the Metropolitan Golf reporting there. Last year it was at 67% of clubs in the Met had a wait list. This year it's looking at 44% based on the reporting that we've got. That's quite a bit of a drop. So I would think we would want to investigate that a little bit more however, you'll see across the region and then across nationally, it's about the same number, 45, 47%. And in the regional case, it started at 54% last year and went to 45% this year. So what we believe is that it's not going to go back to 25 like it was in 2019, pre-pandemic. But this 44, 45% is probably going to be the kind of the new normal looking forward. We're not seeing a lot of attrition, like I said, but maybe some clubs have opened up a little bit more, but to allow more initiation fee revenue, maybe they've reevaluated what their caps are and decided that the cap was arbitrary and maybe not really indicative of use and capacity. Maybe those are the things that are driving the drop in the number of clubs and with an initiation fee. Don't know, I'm sure it's a mixed bag. But we're pretty confident that, at least in the few years coming up, that clubs will maintain wait lists, and then of course there'll be a group of clubs that have never had a wait list and probably won't have one for various reasons. So that's initiation fees. So we're going to look at some trends now. This is non-dues revenue. And so when we looked at this, and this was from a direct comment from Kevin, because he said he had heard that maybe some food and beverage sales and other operating fees other than dues may have seen some negative numbers month by month earlier this year, or maybe into the year. And it's true, according to this. Now, this isn't everybody in the MGA, but it's a good cross section of it. But as you can see, if you look at going back to the summer of 2024 and forward into, say, the winter months of 2025, saw some negative numbers year over year. The bulk of this is going to be food and beverage sales. The rest of it is going to be greens fees and cart fees. A lot of it could be weather driven. If you remember back last spring, I think the weather was pretty shitty. And that probably had something to say. But then when we got into the summer, we started seeing some year over year increases in non-dues revenues in MGA. So in August, 13% over the previous year, 60% over the previous year, looking back at June, and July was kind of flat. It'll be interesting to see how this is moving forward, see the rest of this year and going into the springtime, and see if we're going to see any negative numbers there or if it's going to catch and hold. But this is the first year that we've seen negative year over year non-dues growth. Don't know exactly what might be driving it other than weather, maybe individual economic situations by members constantly, or making decisions to do other things like more travel. It's hard to really pin on that. I'm going to put an overlay on this and just add the region in now. As you can see, the region overall performed at slight increases over last year, month by month for the most part. So what was the difference between the MGA versus the expanded Mid-Atlantic region? Don't know, but it's interesting to see that there's not a lot of negative numbers in the regional spread on this. Although we have seen a gradual decrease in year-over-year increases since the pandemic, But this year it looks like the region had an average of about 2 to 4% increase in non-dues revenues over the previous year. Okay? And now I'm going to add the national line to that, and the national line is actually a little bit more positive than even the region. So averaging at about 5 or 6% over last year. So one of the things that we would say here, I'm going to talk more about this in the second session, and that is going to be, it's vital, more than ever, it's vital to understand where your members are with their satisfaction in the club operation, specifically food and beverage. We know that your golf operations are going to be highly rated, but food and beverage typically isn't. And we're going to talk more about that as we get into the second session, because it's going to be a key component in how to fund an operation if you don't know what your members are really telling you from a satisfaction or net promoter score standpoint. And so this chart, I would say, points us in the direction of what do we know about our members, and what are we going to do about that from a funding position or a budgetary position going forward. So let's shift over to capital. Okay, so capital dues. This is what we looked at. This is from the survey that we just did. Okay, and you can see that from the 0 percentile up to about the 45th percentile, those clubs do not have capital dues, or they're not increasing their capital dues. Okay, but you can see the median though spikes up to a 4% increase in capital dues coming up in 2026. And then it goes up from there to 75th to 10% and beyond. So capital dues has been, especially in an era when we have wait lists, which have put pressure on initiation fee collections. Many clubs have opted to move towards a recurring capital dues to replace that initiation fee or to supplement especially their obligatory needs as the club needs those. And this chart would, if we looked back 5 years ago, this chart, that 0% that you see there at the 25th would have extended out to about the 70th percentile. So in recent years, it's really become an important ingredient in the capital generation aspect of clubs for their capital needs. Yes, sir.
Can you just explain a bit the assessment from the members, or in place of initiator, people aren't taking an initiation fees?
Well, repeat that. I didn't hear the whole thing.
Well, what exactly incorporates capital dues?
Okay. In our parlance, assessments are things that would happen one time or over a period of years, and it would sunset. Capital dues is recurring and it will never go away. It kind of acts like a supplemental dues, similar to operating dues, but it's for specific capital needs. And of course, initiation fees are, from new members coming in. So we would say those are the three main ingredients, and we know from studying this is that capital sources in clubs are typically in 3 sections, and it's 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 at the average club. 1/3 of it being capital dues, which is recurring, another third which is temporary assessments, and then another third in initiation fees. That's the average club. And so what you're seeing here is just a little more proliferation of capital dues going forward. All right, so I'm going to stay on the capital dues for the rest of this presentation, probably the next 10 minutes or so, and just talk about a case study that might be of interest to you, because it deals with capital dues, and it deals with a club that never had capital dues for the last couple of generations. It's a 130-year-old club. I'm not going to name the club. They have a $40 million in gross assets. Their net assets are about 25% of that, so they're very depleted. Lots of probably $8 million of deferred maintenance on their balance sheet. They have a declining net worth since 2006, and so on paper they're bankrupt. But they have 500 members. Okay. We did an asset evaluation with them, and we learned that they have $9 million of deferred capital maintenance, but their maintenance footprint for the next 20 years was more like $27 million, and they also have some aspirational needs that they want to tackle. They don't have a capital dues. All they have is initiation fees, which is significantly lower than the rest of the market where they are. Okay? And so the club needed to generate an additional $28 million over the next 10 years to solve their obligatory and deferred needs and their aspirational projects. So, what was the process that they did? All right, so obviously they were engaged with us. So we moved them through a process with our Compass program where we understood what their capital needs were, like I said. And then we went through a process on funding models. They considered over 19 specific strategies to do that. Some of those strategies were, assessment strategies. Another one was debt strategy, kind of boundary strategies. And then a combination of different things, even different membership structures and things of that nature. They settled on one strategy that was going to be a major increase in capital dues, and in this case, bringing on capital dues for the first time. And they were going to ramp it up quickly. So dues increases in the magnitude, it was going from $0 to $300 a month over a 36-month period of time. And so there's a lot of concern about attrition. There was a lot of concern about member acceptance of that, knowing that the club needed it. I mean, the club looks old, it smells old, and it is old. I mean, you can see it in every aspect. The paths in the carpet to, the grounds maintenance, everything about it is depleted, but they have to survive. They have a pretty good membership. They probably need 1,000 members, but they have 500. So we needed to figure out a way to get member alignment on this with a solution that would just change the course of the club, at least in the short period of time, to get them on track. So how did they do that? Okay. What we ended up doing with them was 20 two-hour member education sessions. Now that sounds like a lot, all right? So there's about 40 to 50 hours of planning with the committee to come up with the strategies, and then there's another rollout where you're doing 2-hour sessions with groups of members, and the group sizes are anywhere from 15 to 40 members over a period of 2 months. At the end of the process, we had 305 members come through the process, okay? And we followed that with an exit survey that would not only measure their understanding of the material, but also their agreement on the strategies selected. And so that was vital that we did that, because we didn't want to just have these and then walk away and go to a member vote. We wouldn't have any idea where they are. You never want to ask a question, the answer of which you don't already know, right? And so what I'm going to show you is the results of the exit surveys, and just so you can see what's possible in this regard. And this is an extreme case. And so like I said, we presented to over 300 members. That's 48% of their membership, more or less. And we received exit survey results from 56% of those. So it's a very strong response rate. You have 56 people out of 300. That's a pretty good size and reliable data that's going to be presented back to the members. So the first question was, do you agree with the results of the data presented regarding the club's obligatory capital needs? We showed them data that said this is what it is. It was done by a third party, of course, and then meted out by the priorities and what have you. And as you can see here, the top 3 responses are strongly agree, the second one is agree, and then somewhat agree. The combination of those 3 was 86.6% of the respondents said they agree with the data that was presented. Joel.
Do you have demographics of the respondents?
We do, yeah, we do. We know what their membership type was, and we know what their age was. We know if they had kids or not. The tenure of the club, all that was part of this survey to show you that. I wasn't going to go through the whole thing on that because you might be able to figure out who it is. So I don't want to do that. Yes, sir.
Was the program expected to go across all membership classes or some membership classes?
Yeah. It's all membership classes. The question was, are we going to do it flat across all classes, or are we going to tiered approach based on their operating dues, which is a question in here. So, yeah. Okay. The second question was, what is your level of agreement with the practice of matching capital dues income to the established obligatory capital needs as defined by the asset evaluation? We believe this is a best practice, is to have a capital dues ultimately that's going to pay for your run rate capital every year. Not just appreciation, but your actual need as described in that asset evaluation. And again, we see an agreement level of 81.5% on establishing the best practice. Now the question is, at what point are we going to actually get to best practice? It's not going to be right away, it's going to be over time. In this case, that best practice is going to be in year 4 or 5. But still, put them on a glide path to get there. As you can see, a very high degree of agreement based on what they heard in the sessions. Next question is, do you agree that the club needs to raise more capital from members through a capital dues increase? And again, an 86% agreement on that, which was very strong. What we're looking for is a super majority, and we're way beyond super majority on this. So this is culture changing for this club. The members that came there were members, they may have walked in as if they were customers of the club, coming very skeptical, but with the presentation of data and a reasoned approach by the club's board, and with the help of club benchmarking, a lot of their members left there thinking more like stewards, which we believe is vitally important from a strategic point of view. So, just to wrap things up here, this is some of the things that we've concluded from this. Members appreciate data-based presentations. What they don't like is opinion-based, top-down approaches to what they have to do. Those are the things that cause mistrust amongst the membership and cause low satisfaction scores with governance. These kind of things, this is very, very transparent, it's very open. The other thing that we've noticed here is, and we hear it a lot because when we were getting into this, and board members and committee members were seeing this presentation, many of them saying, this is way over our members' heads, they won't get it. We knew instinctively that that's not true, but we let it play out and said, let's see what happens. The point is, the data and the concepts that we cover, it's not over members' heads. The point is, if your committees and your board members understand it, your members will too, if given the time and the ability to digest it and understand it. Okay, so it's worth the time to actually go through the process of aligning your membership to the things that you know in the boardroom. A supermajority of members accept the roles of the stewards of the club. So especially in clubs where maybe a supermajority of members might be thinking more transactional, like customers or like renters, all right, the renter-owner thing. Some of these clubs, it's worse than that. They're not customers, they're squatters, but they don't know it. They don't know it until you're actually getting the information out to them. So measuring and understanding the agreement in real time is vitally important, we discovered. I've personally been involved with 3 different clubs in the last 9 months that did a similar thing. So a lot of my time has been taken up doing these 2-hour sessions with members. But I'll tell you, it is worth the time, and it is worth the investment, not only in time, but in getting the data right so that you can present it in a way that takes it above the level of opinion, and that you can then get the data back. So, because what we know, and you all know this too, it's the naysayers in the grill room are oftentimes the ones that are driving the discussion in the boardroom. And if that's not balanced with the greater input from the rest of the members, if you know that you have 85% of members that are agreeing with the approach, but the naysayers never will. They're the 2 to 3% that are saying no. But when you get into a town hall and you say, guys, this is what the whole membership thinks, and it calms things down because it's data. It's real data from their peers. Carl?
Yeah, what do you consider the supermajority?
66 and higher. Yeah, 2/3. And so the survey results, like I said, shut down the arguments from the naysayers. And a point that I'll probably make, and number 2, and I know Ray Cronin makes it all the time, that if you're governing from the vocal minority in the boardroom, what you're potentially handing over the governance reins to the naysayers, and then that puts the board in position of actually being the managers. And then what happens is that the managers are micromanaged, and then you end up with a revolving door at the manager's office. And so that's a simplistic view at it, but I wanted to show you this case study and show you the real results that we're getting on that. And that it's not just a one-off. I've done it 3 times, and other parts of our company have done it multiple times as well. And we were really advocating the idea of understanding what members think, and then advocating then membership education, and then following that up with funding models that make sense for the membership satisfaction. And we're going to talk more about that later this morning. Yes, sir.
Yeah, is that a service provided by the MGA, or is it a fee structure that
I couldn't hear the whole thing, sorry.
is that a service provided by the MGA, or a fee that has to be paid for if the club wants to take something like that?
To do the strategic monthly dashboard is something that you can engage with us for no cost. We can get that data to you, you can look at it monthly. If you elevate into a very inexpensive subscription to our platform, then you can get more data even, but the strategic monthly dashboard is available to everybody.
I was more speaking of the actual survey of the sessions where you come in and talk to the clubs for 2 hours.
We don't do that through MGA, we do that through you specifically, because every club's a little bit different, every club is a different jumping off point, and it's going to be highly customized. Yeah. Any other comments, questions, complaints? I know you drew the short stick, you get to see me twice today, so. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Let's go back to the percentages that you were showing before for the Westchester Fairfield clubs. How many clubs were in that?
Oh, in that, depending on the month, it's as many as 20 clubs out of the 55 that we track data with. So not every club is doing the strategic monthly dashboard. We want more. We want everybody to do it, but not everybody takes the time to submit that. I'd say it's reliable data, but thicker data is always better than less data. Yes, sir.
And did you see anything as far as an attrition rate for this club after its capital?
Yeah, we're tracking that. But we've learned too that processes like this do a really good job at mitigating attrition. There is going to be those marginal members that joined maybe 5 years ago for 0 initiation fee, and they're just clinging to it marginally. And you can pretty much see that in their how they pay their bills every month, whether it's they're 60 days behind or 90 days behind. You can pretty much predict who you're going to lose and shake out on this. But there's it's kind of an actuarial table there. Some of those aren't going to make it, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We don't expect the attrition to be any more than it would be in normal, but, Anything else? Going once?